All right, if everyone is ready, I'll call this meeting of the Plan Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please, when you're ready?
Mr. Ackerson?
Here.
Ms. Billman?
Here.
Mr. Fell? Mr. Fitch?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins? Mr. Otto? Mr. Storr?
Here.
Mr. Trail? Mr. Turner?
We do have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda? The minutes. We have before us the minutes of the January 19th, 2017 regular Plan Commission meeting, which included a case and a study session. Have any motions or anything to say about the minutes? Mr. Trail, motion. Second by Mr. Ackerson. Any changes to the minutes? In that case, we'll have a voice vote for approval of the minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The minutes are approved. Do we have any communications? Thank you. We have here continued public hearing, plan case 2297 M16. Mr. Trail?
That was the Nevada and Lincoln communication that I assume we all received. Is that
You're talking about the Burns and Clancy
right?
email. I think that does. I think that
It was intended to be part of the original package when it went to you on the January 19th meeting. So we were just circulating that as it was supposed to be circulated originally. So I mean, if you wanted to count it now again, that's fine. But the intention was for it to have been part of the original package.
For the record, the Plan Commission received a engineering study from Burns and Clancy pertaining to a proposed or discussed development in Lincoln and Nevada.
I think that was by Don Walther.
Yeah, okay.
Wasn't it for the previous?
It was for a case that has not yet even come to us, technically. Yeah, correct.
It was actually for the previous case that came before, so it was withdrawn.
So, all right, back on the agenda, continued public hearing, plan case 2297 M16 and annexation case 2016A02, proposed annexation agreement between the city and the Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District for a .335 acre parcel at 2912 East Main Street, including rezoning from County R2 single family to City IN1 light industrial office upon annexation. And Mr. Ricci.
Thank you for all coming tonight. Before you is a plan case 2016A02, proposed annexation agreement for a .335 acre parcel, as well as plan case 2297 M16, the request to rezone that same parcel located at 2912 East Main Street from County R2 single family residence to City IN1 light industrial office upon annexation. The City of Urbana has received a request from the Urbana and Champaign Sanitary District to enter into an annexation agreement for this parcel located along the north side of East Main Street between Pfeffer Road and East University Avenue, and commonly referred to as 2912 East Main Street. This is the parcel shown in Exhibit A. The subject parcel's in the middle. To the east is the East Urbana Industrial Center, also known as Tapman's Industrial Park. East Main Street comes down and swoops down into Pfeffer Road, East University Avenue is along the north. This agreement will provide for the continued operation and maintenance of the existing sanitary sewer infrastructure on the property. The proposed agreement would obligate the city to rezone the property from County R2 single-family residence to City IN1 light industrial office upon annexation. The zoning at the site, I will first note that the property north of the subject property here is actually zoned County Ag 2. The greens were confusing, and I had not marked that it was County Ag 2 to the north of the property. So a correction to your previous exhibit. The proposed IN1 zoning is generally consistent with the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan, as the subject property is adjacent to land designated light industrial and serves both the light industrial land to the east and residential designated land to the west. Speaking about the comprehensive plan, it is shown here. The subject property is in the middle and kind of straddles this line between the designations of residential to the west and north and light industrial to the east and south. There's a smidge of community business up here to the northeast. Again, this is recommended future uses in the comprehensive plan. Staff requests that the Plan Commission recommend to the City Council whether or not to rezone the property from County R2 to City IN1 as part of the draft annexation agreement. Some background on the property. It is currently contiguous to the City of Urbana, as shown on the land use map. The fuchsia line running through here, the contiguity line wraps right around this property. And I will mention here that discussions with UCSD staff noted that one of the purposes of this annexation is to correct an oversight from when the land to the east was annexed into the city. They had planned to annex it at that time, and it did not happen. And this, one of the purposes of this annexation, is to correct that oversight. The land is obviously within the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction. It is currently the site of the district's East Main Street sanitary sewage pump station, which has operated there since 1970. According to Mark Ratty, the Director of Engineering Services for the district, the pump station and peripherals service Beringer Commons, the East Urbana Industrial Center, and other areas in the vicinity. The owners do not intend any future development on the site other than that which may be expected from the operation, maintenance, or enhancement of the existing sanitary sewer pump station. This property was initially used under a 1970 utility easement, and then the property was formally purchased by the district in 2016. It was included in the 1991 plat of the East Urbana Industrial Center Number 1 with the following perpetual use restrictions that were set forth on the land as indicated in Exhibit D, which is up on the screen but also in your packet. Outlot 3, which is the legal description of this property, as depicted on said plat, is intended solely for the maintenance of the existing Urbana and Champaign Sanitary District pump station, and said Outlot 3 shall be utilized solely for said purpose and no other purpose. And later restrictions in here said these covenants run with the land and bind all future owners. So regardless of zoning, conditions, whatever, by deed restriction, this property can only be used for the operation of this pump station. An additional regulation also stated that the Pfeffer Road vehicular access cannot be used for access to any other property other than to Outlot 3 for maintenance only of the pump station. So there should not be a concern about people using this as the back entrance into the industrial center or anywhere else. Let's go back to, and then this is a portion of the plat that's included in your exhibit showing the property and then showing the easements to the Urbana and Sanitary District for the property. Let's see, page down. We'll hold off on that. The owners are requesting annexation to obtain the benefits of city fire and safety protection services, as well as to correct the oversight of not annexing the property when the rest of the property was annexed to the east. Also, to provide a more suitable zoning district designation that's consistent with the light industrial use that the property is used for and matches the light industrial uses of the properties to the east. According to later discussions with the applicant, this annexation is to correct an oversight, as I stated before. Benefits to the city of bringing the property into the city include providing better security for the property through it being eligible for city protective services, fire, police, which is good for critical infrastructure to have faster response time to accidents. According to the Urbana zoning ordinance, a public hearing at the Urbana Plan Commission is required if the proposed zoning is going to be different than the direct conversion required by the zoning ordinance from county R2 single-family residence to city R2 single-family residential zoning, which is why we're hearing the zoning portion tonight. The draft annexation agreement states that the property will be rezoned to city IN1 light industrial office upon annexation and includes a 10-foot utility easement to be granted along the north property line to the city of Urbana, which will extend a similar easement from the adjacent lot westward onto this lot. East Urbana Industrial Center has a 10-foot utility easement around the entire property, which allows for the placement of water, sewer, electrical, anything else. And the inclusion of this easement will allow that to continue westward towards the city. So I won't bore you with all of the annexation agreement, but the draft is included in your packet. It follows the city's standard template of an annexation agreement with the inclusion of the utility easement shown here. After annexation, item 3, the owner agrees to execute the easement attached as Exhibit C. And the plats are shown here of the subject property, as well as the 10-foot easement along the north end of the property. As stated previously, the property is currently zoned County R2 single-family residence, and upon annexation would be zoned City IN1 light industrial office. According to the Urbana zoning ordinance, the city's R2 single-family residential district is intended to provide areas for single-family detached dwellings at a low density on lots smaller than the minimum for the R1 district. The R2 district is also intended to provide for a limited proportion of two-family dwellings. In comparison, the proposed IN1 light industrial office district is intended to provide land for employment centers related to research and development, engineering, testing, and other similar uses, as well as industrial activities that will not have an adverse effect upon the district in which it is located. As per the zoning ordinance, the proposed IN1 light industrial zoning district permits the utility provider use by right, which encompasses the operation of a sanitary sewer district pump station. And let us go to, you have the zoning description sheet in your case file, and under second page in bright red, utility provider is included under public and quasi-public. So this use is permitted by right in the IN1 district. Conversely, in the city's R2 single-family residential zoning district, the district resulting from a direct conversion upon annexation as required by the zoning ordinance, the utility provider use is neither permitted by right nor with either a conditional use or special use permit. This is the reason for the request to rezone this property to IN1 light industrial office. As well, the proposed city IN1 zoning district allows the fewest number of permitted uses of those that do permit the utility provider use by right. And there are 5 other different business and industrial zoning districts that allow this as a by right use, making it the strictest zoning district, that option that most limits the number of potentially incompatible uses to the neighboring properties. Looking at the neighboring zoning, the subject property is zoned County R2 and used as the site of the sanitary sewer pump station. Land to the north is zoned Ag 2 in the county and is the site of the inactivated railroad right-of-way, and which is currently being converted to a multi-purpose trail. Land to the south and east is zoned IN1 light industrial office and currently used for warehousing, agricultural, and residential. And land to the west is zoned County R2 single-family residence and used for residential. Further north in the city, there are higher density residential districts, as well as some community business to the northeast. Regarding the comprehensive plan, the subject property and land to the south and west and north are designated for future use as residential. Land to the south and east is designated as light industrial. The comprehensive plan defines these uses as follows. Residential areas contain primarily single-family residential housing, but also include a variety of compatible land uses such as duplexes, townhomes, civic uses, institutional uses, and parks where the zoning is appropriate. Conversely, the light industrial office land use is intended for planned developments that typically do not generate the intensity of heavy industrial land uses. Fairly open and allowing for different uses. As this is a rezoning, we look at the LaSalle National Bank criteria. There are 6 different factors that we look at to compare the existing zoning with that proposed by the petitioner. The first thing we look at is existing land uses and the zoning of the nearby property. This relates to the degree to which the existing and proposed zoning districts are compatible with existing neighboring land uses and land regulations in the immediate area. The proposed IN1 light industrial office zoning is consistent with the current and restricted future uses of the property to only the maintenance of sanitary sewer infrastructure operated by the Urbana-Champaign Sanitary District. That same zoning matches the zoning and is compatible with the existing industrial and heavy commercial use to the properties to the east and the agricultural areas to the south. It is also compatible with the single-family residential uses to the west, as it does not create a nuisance with parking or traffic, bright lights, loud noises, or strong odors. Properties to the south and east are zoned IN1 light industrial office in the city and designated as such in the comprehensive plan, while properties to the west and north are zoned county agricultural or zoned city or county residential and designated as residential in the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning would permit the continued use of the subject property as a, quote, utility provider and would be generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, which designates this area for residential use adjacent to light industrial uses. The second factor is looking at the extent to which property values are diminished by the restrictions of the rezoning. This is the difference in the value of the property as the direct zone city R2 residential and the value it would have as if it were zoned to the proposed IN1 light industrial. A direct conversion from county to city zoning would result in the subject property being zoned as R2 single-family residential, creating an inconsistency between zoning and land use, as the city R2 zoning does not permit the utility provider use by right nor with a conditional or special use permit. This would render the continued utility provider use into a non-conforming use, which is less preferable than the permitting by right provided by the proposed IN1 light industrial zone district. In addition, the perpetual deed restrictions of the 1991 plat would still prohibit any use other than the maintenance of the UCSD's sanitary sewer infrastructure. The comprehensive plan designates this area of the subject property for residential uses adjacent to light industrial uses, indicating that the long-standing utility provider use of the property would be generally consistent with the plan. Given these circumstances, in summary, the zoning use inconsistency that would be created by direct zoning to city R2 and the general consistency with the Urbana Comprehensive Plan, it's the opinion of the Planning Division staff that the proposed zoning would not negatively impact property values. That being said, it should be noted that the Urbana City Planning Division staff are not qualified as professional appraisers and that a professional appraiser has not been consulted regarding the impact on the property values. Therefore, any discussion pertaining to property values must be considered speculative and inconclusive. The next two factors that we look at are the extent to which the ordinance promotes the health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the public, and the relative gain to the public as compared to the hardship imposed on the individual property owner. The proposed rezoning to IN1 light industrial will benefit the health, safety, and general welfare of the public by providing faster, more effective city fire and safety protective services to help secure the sanitary sewer infrastructure which serves the residents and businesses in the area. Providing this benefit to the public will create no hardship on the individual property owner, as they have operated in this fashion for the last 46 years. And in fact, the annexation process 46 since 1970. In fact, the annexation process itself has been initiated and pursued by the property owner. Should the rezoning be denied, there would be no relative gain to the public, since the property has been in use for sanitary sewer infrastructure since 1970 and, according to the restrictive covenants, can only be used for that purpose. The fifth factor that we look at is the suitability of the subject property for the zoned purposes. Again, the subject property is located between existing residential and industrial uses and has been the site of this sanitary sewer pump station for the last 46 years. The proposed IN1 light industrial zoning better reflects the current utility provider use conducted on the property, matches the easterly adjacent property's current IN1 light industrial zoning and warehouse uses, and is currently consistent with the comprehensive plan's future land designation of adjacent land as light industrial. Finally, we look at the length of time the property has been vacant as zoned. Actually, the subject property is not vacant. It has been a utility provider for the last 46 years and is a use that is non-conforming in its current R2 single-family residence zoning district. Granting the rezoning request would help ensure the subject property's continued use by the district and the continued operation of the sanitary sewer infrastructure, while denying the rezoning request would continue its non-conforming status. In summary, the Urbana and Champaign Sanitary District has requested that the City of Urbana enter into an annexation agreement for this 0.335 acre parcel located along the north side of East Main Street between Pfeffer Road and East University Avenue, and referred to as 2912 East Main Street. The property owners desire city fire and safety protective services and request an annexation agreement with the City of Urbana. The property owners request that the property be rezoned from County R1 single-family residence to City IN1 light industrial office upon annexation as part of the annexation agreement. The proposed IN1 light industrial office zoning district would allow for the property owners to continue using the property as a utility provider for the operation of sanitary sewer infrastructure. The proposed IN1 zoning is generally consistent with the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan, as the subject property is adjacent to land designated light industrial and serves both light industrial and residential designated land. Finally, the proposed rezoning appears to generally meet the LaSalle criteria. The options for the Plan Commission in Plan Case 2016-A02-2297M16, the Plan Commission may forward this case to the City Council with a recommendation to either approve the proposed annexation agreement, including a zoning designation of IN1 light industrial office for the subject property, or B, approve the proposed annexation, including the zoning designation of IN1 light industrial office, subject to recommended changes. Note that the property owner would have to agree to any recommended changes, or C, deny the proposed annexation agreement. Staff recommendation based on the evidence presented to date, without the benefit of considering additional evidence that may be presented at the public hearing, recommends that the Plan Commission recommend approval of the proposed annexation agreement with rezoning as requested. I will mention that Mr. Rick Manner is here from the Urbana and Champaign Sanitary District and would like to offer some brief comments and is here to take questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ritchie. Any questions? Mr. Hopkins?
On the 1991 annexation agreement, the statement about no access from Pfeffer Road
Yes.
does not explicitly refer to Outlot 3 as an exception. Are we arguing that Outlot 3 is an exception because in the end it wasn't included in the 1991 annexation agreement? Or are we doing it on some other basis? I don't.
So on the full plat, the only, which is not shown here, this is only an excerpt, which I, though, would be glad to pass around because I've got a copy of it.
So the exception is on the plat, not in the annexation agreement?
Correct. Yes. So the
Okay.
original, or the
That's
1991
essentially
plat,
what I'm looking for, because it actually doesn't say that in the annexation agreement. But is it also my understanding that this Outlot 3, in the end, wasn't actually in the annexation agreement anyway?
the Outlot 3 was not part of the annexation of the rest of East Urbana Industrial Center, but it was part of the platting of the
Okay.
industrial center.
Okay.
So the
So-
vehicular access,
So the annexation agreement from 1991 is actually irrelevant to this case.
yes, and I'm
It's
not,
an interesting piece of historical context.
Well-
but it has no legal meaning for
the
this case.
1991 document was not the annexation, it was the platting of the land. I'm not sure when the industrial center itself was annexed into the city. I never presented on that.
Okay.
It was this, the 1991 document was the platting of the land which established this Outlot 3 as well as the lots of the industrial center. I apologize if there was
Okay.
confusion.
All right.
But in that platting is where the restrictions and the vehicular access were laid out. But those would carry on in perpetuity.
Any further questions? I do have one just for clarification. So if this property is not rezoned, can they make major renovations or enhancements to the pump station since it would be non-conforming? In other words, if they have to, maybe we could address that.
That
Yeah.
because I'm guessing that the sanitary district may have had conversations with the county about that because that would fall under the county jurisdiction if we don't annex it.
Or were
Right,
you
right.
asking if it was annexed but not rezoned?
Which, could happen.
I believe it would continue as a legally non-conforming use, legally
Right.
non-conforming, which would mean that it would not be able to probably expand in geographic footprint, but if a larger piece of machinery had to be put in,
Replaced or something, yeah.
I would imagine that if folks discussed it legally, that it would be allowed to do what it needed to do to continue in its current use as the pump station.
We would probably restructure the annexation agreement to allow for that kind of thing. So, not having that rezoning means an R2 city zoning, but an annexation agreement allows us to make accommodations in that agreement to allow some flexibility in its use.
Okay. So what if it burned? I mean,
It would be able to be built
Okay.
to replace.
okay.
That's typical with most non-conforming
Right.
uses.
Just clarify. Mr. Hopkins?
Memory escapes me. We don't actually have authority over an annexation agreement, am I correct? What we're really doing is recommending the rezoning, which enables the annexation agreement as written
Correct.
to be acted on by council.
Yes.
So the annexation agreement is not actually our case.
Do you still want us to give an opinion on the annexation agreement? We're not shy about that. No. Any further questions? Thank you very much. So now, typically in a, did you have something further, Ms.? All right, in a public hearing, the petitioner may present evidence, you're free, thank you, Mr. Ricci. And then others may be heard, opponents may be heard, and the petitioner then may wrap up their case, and then the Plan Commission will close the public hearing and discuss the case and possibly vote. So if you could just state your name and sign the paper, that would be outstanding.
Sure.
My name is Rick Manor. I'm the Executive Director of the Urbana and Champaign Sanitary District. Originally, I was thinking that I was going to have to explain a few things, but Marcus's review is so thorough that I don't really see that there's much point. A couple years ago, we started to work on getting ownership of this parcel, and the main purpose of that was to actually enact this annexation so that we could get 911 services from the city. It's taken a while to get there, but we think that we're there now. It just makes sense to us. Like I said, it seems like this was just overlooked. They annexed the functioning part of the industrial park, and since this was an outlot, it was left off of the annexation at that time, and we're trying to correct that now. It serves a significant part of Urbana. It allowed Urbana to grow northeasterly. The existence of this pump station was for that purpose, and so it makes sense that it should be in the city.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Manor? And I think Mr. Ricci you answered my question, so he had raised his hand when but I got what I needed on that.
But actually, if you don't mind, I would comment a little bit
Sure,
about that.
sure.
As a state-enabled government authority, the sanitary district, we would be operating it to our needs. And the zoning issues are something that we would be working through, but the property has always been encumbered with the easement that covers the majority of the lot. And that easement would be what we would turn to in terms of our rights to maintain the pump station, if necessary, expand the pump station, that the easement includes the options or the ability to maintain it as a pump station and as needed. And the state legislation that enables the sanitary district to exist is what we would be looking to in terms of why we could continue to do that, even if there was some nonconformance with zoning issues. And I think that issue has been discussed a while in regards to zoning and sanitary districts and how they work with cities and such. And so it might get a little bit interesting if there was some conflict there. But in general, it's a pleasure to work with professional city staff. You guys are great to work with. We enjoy our good working relationship with all of you, and look forward to continue doing that in the future.
Mr. Storr, I think you were first by the nose there.
Oh. Thank you. Mr. Manor, have there been any security problems with the site that figure into the taking the action at this particular time? And is there any current plans for expansion that would add additional noise or make some construction activity there? Thank you.
No, actually, it was simply a side conversation with my director of maintenance, who said, you know, that pump station is not in the city, and so if we call 911, it would be a while before we might get some service. And so could we get the owner to annex it? And then that led to a conversation with the owner, and so I said, can we talk to you about annexing? He said, you know what? Why am I paying property taxes on this? Why don't you guys take over ownership? I said, sure. We said, $100, sold. Let's get this done. Let's get it annexed. And so now, as the owner, I'm approaching you for doing the annexation. It just seems a little more straightforward. Again, we're sort of just cleaning up some loose ends from 20 years ago.
Mr. Ackerson.
And I think this is covered, but I just want to make sure. So your primary reason for requesting it is to get the 911 service. One, how are you getting that provided now, and are there any other advantages to getting access to city services?
And I'm sorry, I didn't answer the question in terms of there are no plans for any changes or anything like that, too. I didn't explicitly state that. We currently get it via county services. We haven't had any great needs for it because it is just a pump station that includes mechanical equipment that we take care of and we maintain, and it works just fine. And so our burden in terms of actual services is quite minimal, and it's anticipated to stay that way. There's no need for expansion of that it was, we build all our infrastructure with a 50 to 100 year lifespan in mind, And so there hasn't been so much growth out there to overwhelm that or result in any need for updating, for expansion. Updating, it is something that is being necessary. It's 40 years old, and so there are issues associated with that, but we would do that with all of our infrastructure. We continuously do that, and asset management is our main job. And so that is on the list of things that we're going to be looking at in terms of perhaps updating that station. We just recently did some construction in regards to the pipes coming and going from that station. I don't know if you noticed that, but the road, the lane closure on University just before Christmas was us working in the area just immediately to the north of that property. That was us doing some work up there.
All right. Any further questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to address the Plan Commission on this case? Oh, thank you. Hearing no further, you did? I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Come on up, and if you would please just state your name and sign the paper, that would be great.
Hello, my name is Lorenzo Macedo,
Okay.
and I live on 2820 Spur.
Uh-huh.
And I just have a couple questions. How? I mean, I live right next to the property. In case, I just would like to know, how does that affect me as a property owner or neighbor? Or, I mean, is there any benefits? Is there any effects, negative effects to me? I don't understand.
So my opinion is that you would probably see no difference between your life in the next year as in the last 10 years. There's not going to be any increased traffic other by employees. There aren't any visitors to the property. There will be no increased noise or odors. Things will probably be pretty seamless. It's simply a transition from it being in the county to being in the city. Now, the zoning does change from residential to industrial, which in any other case would open up a whole list of other industrial uses that could be done on that site. However, the plat restrictions from 1991 explicitly state that the only use that can ever happen on that property is the operation and maintenance of the sanitary sewer infrastructure. So as long as that isn't thrown out in a court of law, that is the only thing that will ever happen on that property.
Okay, so that means that if we're gonna be part of the city as an owner of this property, my taxes will raise, or
No, your property will not be affected by that. You'll still just maintain your county status. You won't have to pay
Okay.
Urbana taxes or anything like that.
all right, that's that
good
was,
for you.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
mainly my question. Yeah,
The
all right.
annexation request is only for that
For
one
that property,
property
okay.
owned by the sanitary district.
Perfect.
That's right.
All right. Well, that was it. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
good.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to address the commission? No. Okay, sorry, I almost jumped the gun on that. So now I will close the public input portion of the hearing and ask the commissioners if we have any discussion or motions or anything of that nature.
I move we send Plan Case 2297 M16 to the City Council with recommendation of approval.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Hopkins, seconded by Mr. Storr. We'll do a roll call whenever you have a chance. Now, that was just the plan case, correct? I mean,
It's the only case we have.
the annexation, right, right,
You want to
okay.
call for discussion on one of the group?
I did call for discussion.
I will say the way that we typically have handled these is that you recommend approval of the package, the annexation agreement as a package, including the rezoning. Because there is a public hearing here for the annexation agreement. So it'd probably be cleaner just to recommend on the annexation agreement, which includes, of course, the rezoning.
Would-
Fair
You want to
enough.
amend your motion? Yeah. Consider the motion amended to include the annexation agreement. And so we still have a motion by Mr. Hopkins, a second by Mr. Storr. It was a long time ago.
And the motion could be discussed.
And the motion could absolutely be discussed.
That just clarified
Okay.
my only question, so.
Okay. Any discussion?
Looks
Mr.
pretty
Fitt?
straightforward to me.
Huh?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, yeah, in that case, having no discussion, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Fitch?
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins? Mr. Storr?
Yes.
Mr. Trail? Mr. Ackerson?
Yes.
And Ms. Billman?
That motion passes. And when will this go to the council?
February 20th.
February 20th to the council. So we don't have any old business, don't have any new public hearings or new business. Does anybody want to address the Plan Commission about any other topic pertaining to planning and zoning? No audience participation tonight. Do we have a staff report?
Only to embarrass the recording secretary to indicate that it's Terry's birthday today. She's spending it with us.
Let's
Happy
get her on
birthday.
camera.
Yeah, that's a sore subject. All right, well, we don't have a study session, and therefore we are adjourned.